Hey, welcome to Football Mindset and week one of the 2025 NFL season. I want to share with you my fantasy lineups for week one and see how successful I'm going to be this Sunday. It's week one, very exciting time for everybody who loves football. And the platform that I use for fantasy football is actually FanDuel. I've been using FanDuel since they basically became the number one used platform. I've been very successful at using FanDuel, multiple strategies and things of that nature to win some money throughout the past 15 years or so since I've been doing this semi professionally, semi full time. So whenever football season comes around, it's the best time of year for a lot of people. So let's get into my lineups for week one. So what I do is I separate early game slate, main game slate, and the late game slate. So what I do is I have three separate lineups that I use depending on which slate that I'm going to be putting my lineups in. So we'll start off with the early game slate, and you've got 8 games going at the, I'm in the Central Time Zone, so the noon time zone, one Eastern kickoff games. There's 8 games, and this is my early games lineup for week one. So quarterback, I'm going Spencer Rattler. The Saints at home against the Cardinals. Cardinals defense, probably middle of the road. I just think that the first game, there's gonna be so much excitement playing at home. I'm gonna go with Rattler, who got the starting nod over the rookie. So I expect, pretty decent. Plus he's got some running ability. My guess is somewhere around 40 to 50 yards rushing, another 200, 250, maybe a couple of touchdowns. So looking for a pretty solid game from Rattler, who is, as far as the cost of Rattler, it's pretty low in terms of the quarterback cost. So I went Spencer Rattler as my quarterback. Running back would be his backfield mate, Alvin Kamara. So I look for a steady dose of Kamara against the Cardinals defense. Second running back I'm taking is Tyrone Tracy Jr. with the Giants. I just think that there's a lot of movement on the Giants. There's been a lot of quote unquote experts who think the Giants are actually gonna be a lot better than people think. So I'm gonna ride that as well, and I'm gonna go with Tracy Jr. as my second back in the early game slate. Number one wide receiver would be Chris Olave. Again, we're stacking here with Rattler, Kamara, and Olave. And then second wide receiver would be Harrison Jr. I think that he's going to have a better second season than last season, kind of a disappointing rookie campaign, but I'm going to go Harrison Jr., my second wide receiver, indoors, looking to have a big first game in the second season. Third wide receiver is going to be Jamar Chase. Obviously, he's the number one wide receiver in anybody's, lineup. He's cost the most, but I just think the production is going to be there. First game, he's going to get probably minimum 7 targets, probably maybe 10 targets. So at least a minimum of 5 catches I'm expecting from Chase, probably somewhere between 80 and 120 yards, probably, hopefully a touchdown or 2. So I'm going to go Jamar Chase, my third wide receiver. Tight end, I'm going to go Strange, the tight end for the Jacksonville Jaguars. He's taken over for Evan Ingram, and so I think that they're going to use him more. He had a pretty good campaign last year. He's kind of underrated, so I think the reason why they moved on from Evan Ingram is because their new tight end Strange, their new starting tight end, I believe, he's got a good skill set, and they're going to work him in that offense. So I went Strange on the tight end for Jacksonville. My flex position is going to be Taylor, the running back out of Indianapolis. I think he's going to be fed a lot of carries, and he's playing at home against the suspect Miami defense. So I'm going Taylor as my running back for Indy. And my defense special teams, I'm going to go Pittsburgh Steelers. I just think the Steelers defense is always going to be solid. I know that the Jets offense isn't some high prolific offense at this point. You got Justin Fields coming in, first game. I'm going Steelers. So again, quickly, wide receiver Rattler, running back Kamara, running back Tracy Jr., wide receiver Olave, wide receiver Harrison Jr., wide receiver Chase, tight end Strange, flex position running back Taylor, and defense special teams Steelers. So this is my early game slate. So only those 8 first games, okay? Now we're going to get to the main game slate. This is where you take all the 12 games and you have all these players to choose from those specific 12 games. So starting off my quarterback here, I'm going to go Kyler Murray, quarterback of Arizona Cardinals. I'm going to go running back James Conner, running back. That backfield I think is going to come out doing pretty well. So I'm kind of hedging a little bit here with Rattler, Kamara, Murray, Conner, kind of covering both sides on this game. So I'm going to go Jaylen Warren, my second running back out of the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think he's going to get a fair amount of carries. I think it's always going to be a run-heavy offense when it comes to Pittsburgh. Aaron Rodgers' first game, I think they're going to rely on the run a little bit, kind of, ease everything in. Wide receiver 1 is going to be Puka Nacua from the Los Angeles Rams. I think he's probably going to be a top 5 wide receiver if he stays healthy. So Puka Nacua, number 1. And then his counterpart on the other side is going to be Nico Collins on the Texans. And then I'm going to go Jalen Waddle, wide receiver out of Miami. I think that there's going to be a lot of emphasis put on Tyreek Hill. So Waddle's going to get a fair number of looks, probably 4 to 6 catches, my hope is, with hopefully about 75 yards. If he does catch the ball, he's usually getting yards after the catch. So I'm going Waddle as my third wide receiver. I'm going to go Trey McBride as my tight end to pair with Murray, Conner, and McBride as kind of a trio. So I have those 3 Arizona Cardinals. And then my flex position is going to be Deebo Samuel. I think him, new team, he's going to come out. They're going to try to feed him a little bit. He needs to showcase his talents on that new team and that high prolific offense. So I look for him to get a minimum, probably about 5 to 7 targets, maybe a couple rushes. So Deebo Samuel, Giants defense, I know there's a lot of people expecting them to be great. We don't know that yet. So I'm kind of taking a risk on Deebo, but I think he's going to come out and have a pretty strong first game there. And then my defense special teams, Broncos going against the rookie quarterback at home. There's a reason why the Broncos are the highest cost defense in the FanDuel lineups. It's because they're playing at home, rookie quarterback, Titans, coming off of a terrible last season. So Broncos, I expect to, get a few sacks, maybe a couple picks, hopefully. So that's my main games lineup. Again, quarterback Murray, running back Conner, running back Warren, wide receiver Nacua, wide receiver Collins, wide receiver Waddle, tight end McBride, flex position Deebo Samuel, and then defense special teams Broncos. Main game slate there. So that's where most of my resources went. This is the lineup I have most of my position in. So hopefully we can have the Cardinals come out and showcase on the road a pretty high prolific offense. So we'll see how that goes. And then we have the late game slate. This is the 4 games in the late window. And so let's get into it. My quarterback, I'm going Jared Goff, obviously high prolific offense. I'm going to pair him again with his running back, Jamar Gibbs. So we got Gibbs and Goff as my top 2 tandem there. Running back, I'm going to go Walker, running back out of the Seattle Seahawks. I just think he gets fed a fair amount of rushes today at home. Everyone's going to be hyped. Okay, so I'm going Walker, my running back 2 out of Seattle Seahawks. And then I'm going to pair him with the new addition, Cooper Kupp, the Washington native. He's coming back home in a sense. So I got Cooper Kupp as my wide receiver 1 there. I got Calvin Ridley as my second wide receiver in the late games. I think that he's going against the Broncos. However, he's their number 1 target. He's going to get a fair amount of looks. So I expect Ridley to have potentially 7 to 10 targets, hopefully 5 to 7 catches, hopefully yards after the catch. So I'm going Calvin Ridley there. And then I'm pairing, obviously, Goff, Gibbs, and St. Brown, one of the top wide receivers in the NFL, great offense. So I'm going those trio of Lions. And my tight end is going to be Evan Ingram, the new addition to the Denver Broncos. So I think that he's going to be kind of a security blanket for Bo Nix out of the Denver offense. So I've got Ingram as my tight end. Flex position running back is going to be Josh Jacobs, running back out of the Green Bay Packers. That's an offense that they rely on him. He's their number 1 guy. I think he's going to get a fair amount of looks and probably 15 to 22-ish rushes. So hopefully goal line, they're going to feed him. Maybe a touchdown or 2 would be great. My defense special teams, I'm going to go Seahawks. Having lived in Seattle for a long time, I know the Seahawks crowd is absolutely insane. First game, division opponent, everyone's going to be hyped. I expect the Seahawks to come out and play very, very well. So I don't expect a huge high-scoring game, but I have the Seahawks as my defense special teams in my late game slate. So those are my 3 lineups for week 1. Again, I use FanDuel Fantasy. And my biggest position is the main games, but I do try to cover all of the slates, early, main, and late. And that way, kind of hedging myself here to see, if I can make sure if, there's a breakout game here or a breakout trio of stars here in this one team, that I'm kind of covered. So I have the Cardinals, I have the Saints, the Cardinals, and then I have the Lions. So if one of those teams actually comes out and those 3 players hit, it's likely that I'll be in the money as far as that particular slate. So this is kind of my strategy I use for my fantasy football. Again, I use FanDuel, and this is week 1 of the 2025 season. And you can follow along this season. I'm going to post my lineups every Saturday or Sunday before the games, and so we can see just how I do. And I hope you follow along, and I appreciate you watching. Take care.